We had quite an interesting week last week with 4 interest rate decisions and a whole bunch of other high impact news. Mainly we had FOMC and the rate cut for the US dollar, which was mainly priced in already. We will see that here, especially on the DXY on the lower time frame. And we had the big surprising super weak GDP data out of New Zealand, which then led to more or less a sell-off in the New Zealand dollar across the board. We can see here on the DXY on the weekly time frame, we had a bullish, this is actually a bullish low test candle into this previous low here, so we have to be a bit careful. It looks already a bit better on the lower time frame for a potential turnaround, but this higher time frame is conflicting, so there is an argument for price to go back down and retesting the low one more time before we see a more sustainable medium-term rally in the US dollar. On the 1 hour time frame, we can see there is some structure in this price action. We do have here this low test candle, this bullish low test candle. That was actually FOMC. I'm here on Asia time frame, and then we saw first tapping the low and then a new high, retesting this low here, but then we failed to sell off, even though you would expect overall a weakening in the dollar with further rate cuts and the rate cuts already. Instead, we made a new high, had the first smaller bullish continuation, and we are now here trading into these small liquidity areas here to the left. And I'm price action wise, short term, I'm more looking for the next continuation to the upside, at least for medium term. But after this run, I want to see very clear price action confirmation before considering any trade. That goes for all the other dollar related pairs, of course, and you will see there's quite a lot of conflicting price action for next week. We are here now on Euro US dollar on the 1 hour time frame. You can see here very similar. We tapped the high here to the left, but this is corrective price action. So, and we discussed that multiple times. If we see corrective price action, we want to see a fairly flat flag at the end before then entering a potential short in this case. We are trading here below this small liquidity area here, this volume accumulation, and I'd like to see a proper flag closing this small gap here before then entertaining a short in this area, preferably even a 3-touch flag and not only a 2-touch, a bit more deliberate price action for a short. Pound US dollar looks a bit better. Here on the daily time frame, we can see it's 3 days already, so we have to be careful. So it might need a bit more time before we see a continuation, but you can clearly see we have a nice bearish momentum here. We have a clear high test, a washout candle into this liquidity area. We did not tap the last previous value area, but we are in a momentum run and we have an impulsive move. On the 1 hour time frame, we can see here sequence wise we had initially a potential sell-off, so we are here still in a failed continuation basically. Then we had an impulsive move out or impulsive breakdown of price, and then the first smaller continuation, and we are now looking for a bigger continuation. So I'd like to see a structured 1 hour flag through this low here to the left to then entertain a short continuation. New Zealand dollar, US dollar, especially after this very weak GDP data. To be honest here, the daily does not look that nice, not that clean. Yeah, it is bearish momentum here. We are coming from a V-shaped recovery, but overall we are a bit in no man's land. This overall looks more, or we were looking initially for a bullish continuation with this nice impulsive move, and here the volume accumulation for the next leg to the upside. But we had this fundamental catalyst for a weakening in the New Zealand dollar, and therefore I'm now looking for a short continuation. And we had here this small continuation flag on this liquidity area. This is quite a significant one. You can see them also on the higher time frame, and we have here a liquidity area here just below, and I'd like to see a structured flag into this liquidity area to then entertain the next leg to the downside. US dollar, Swiss francs, of course, in that case, we are looking for a long, and the daily time frame, we can see here we did tap this previous low. So we tapped the value area here. We had a fairly nice washout candle and are now in a bullish momentum run. Again, it's the third day or 3 bullish days, so we might see a bit more reaction before we see the next move to the upside. But here again, similar to the DXY, what we saw before, here the FOMC candle here is a bit better positioned. We were already on the low, and this was a very nice washout candle. Then we tapped into this previous low here to the left and failed to connect to the downside. Instead, we broke back up, had this smaller continuation, and I'm now looking for a slightly bigger, at least a structured 2-touch continuation to the upside. We don't see that many 3-touch on the 1-hour time frame for this Swiss francs pairs, and that's why I would entertain a structured 2-touch flag in this area. Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar on the daily time frame, it is a bit overextended. We are trading above the high, but I would still look for a long continuation, a slightly larger flag. We do have here on the 1-hour time frame this nice liquidity area, and I'd like to see a structured flag into this liquidity area to then entertain a long continuation. Euro Swiss francs on the daily time frame, we have here still a gap to fill to these previous lows here to the value areas. We had here this liquidity area sideways, corrective price action, tapped it now here, and I'm now looking on the 1-hour time frame, or actually on the 1 hour we can see it a bit clearer. We have this liquidity area here, this liquidity point, and I'd like to see price tapping into this area one more time. I would then entertain a smaller, lower time frame short continuation here. Euro New Zealand dollar, I'm looking for the long on the daily time frame. We did initially tap this value area, had a nice start with a slightly larger initial continuation pattern here, which then failed to basically continue in this area, and instead we just creeped back up and fully broke through the previous high again. And considering the fundamental catalyst, I'm looking for a long continuation in Euro New Zealand dollar, structured 1-hour flag, price coming back, closing the gap here into this liquidity area. We do have this as a potential for a slightly larger pullback, but the overall idea would then still be the same for a Euro New Zealand dollar long. Australian dollar yen, I'm also looking for a long continuation here on the daily time frame. We have a bit more significant areas of interest slightly higher up, and we are now starting to form a larger continuation flag on the 1-hour time frame. We can see here it's multiple ways to take it. Price did actually already enough. So if we see a break above this small high here to the left, followed by a lower time frame bullish continuation, I would entertain a trade in this area, because from here to the high is already enough room to manage the trade. But then for a potential larger 4-hour flag to entertain a long from this area. Pound yen, on the other hand, is the counter trade here. I'm looking for a short. Is not ideally positioned in the bigger picture. You can see here, of course, we are fairly okay positioned in terms of this liquidity area here to the left. We entered, or actually we tapped the high in form of a 1, 2, 3 structure, have a very nice impulsive run, and are now trading below this low here to the left. On the 1-hour time frame, we can see the minimum I'd like to see. This would be a momentum play. So a smaller structured flag on the 1-hour time frame, enough room to manage to the low of the bigger structure. However, you can see here this liquidity point here. And after this aggressive, impulsive run to the downside, I would not be surprised if we see a slightly larger pullback into this area, tapping this in form of a V-shaped recovery. And if we see something like that with a lower time frame continuation pattern, I would entertain a short after a V-shaped recovery. And Australian dollar, Swiss francs on the daily time frame, there's still enough room to retest the low here to the left. This again is a bit corrective price action here, but then as we discussed before, we are looking for a flat flag to drop out. We got that here. We had this 1, 2, 3, a nice impulse, and are now looking for a lower time frame continuation. On the 1-hour time frame, we can see we had here this nice impulse. We have here a smaller structure, and I'm now looking for a price to form a 1, 2, 3 into this high here to then entertain a short from this area. That's it. That's my watch list for next week. Thanks for watching. See you next week. Bye bye.